Before we get started, just curious, where are you reading this from? Drop a comment below. It always makes me smile knowing these stories reach different places. And if this story really hits home, think about subscribing. I post new ones every day, and some, like this one, might just stick with you. Okay, take a deep breath in, and let's jump in. The wind was having a field day, scattering dry leaves all over the place outside. Inside the garage, Esther was all alone, the gentle click-clack of her knitting needles filling the space between those old, cracked walls. The scarf she was working on, it used to be a bright, happy blue, was now super long and a little wonky. She'd been working on it for weeks, just waiting. It wasn't about needing a scarf anymore. It was just something to do to pass the time. She could hear them through the skinny gap in the garage door. Laughter. The sound of plates, someone popping open a bottle of fancy wine, and then a big wave of happy cheers coming from the kitchen. Her kitchen. Her house. But not her party. "Just for a couple of hours, Mom," Linda had said earlier, voice a little sharp as she smoothed down her dress in the hallway mirror. "We're having guests over, important ones. Please just try to stay out of the way." Esther nodded. That's what she did these days, mostly. Nobody even thought to ask where she might go. She wasn't even bothered much by the cold anymore. She was wearing 2 sweaters and this wool shawl, the kind she used to knit for Linda when she was a kid. Back when Linda would snuggle up to her, resting her head in Esther's lap, wanting to be rocked, kissed, and sung to sleep. Back when Mom meant a safe place. Comfort. Love. Now it felt more like Mom meant an inconvenience. They'd moved into her house 5 years ago, just for a little bit after Linda's husband, David, lost his job. "You won't even notice we're here," they joked, laughing. "Besides, it'll be good. We can all help each other out." And it was good, for a while. But somehow, over the years, her bedroom started feeling smaller. The heat never seemed to reach her part of the house anymore. And your house slowly turned into our place. Then, little by little, it became their home. Except on Christmas, or birthdays, or when they had fancy dinner parties. On those days, she pretty much disappeared. Or worse, she was an embarrassment. She didn't cry anymore. She'd used up all her tears in the early years. Back then, she'd hide out in the garden shed, whispering to herself, trying to believe they didn't mean to hurt her, that Linda was just stressed, that David wasn't really mean, just a bit stuck up, that the grandkids were still learning. But now she just waited. She waited for the tap on the garage door, that soft, almost unsure tap that always came when the guests were gone, the leftovers were all packed away, and the lipstick-stained wine glasses were lined up in the dishwasher. Then she'd be allowed back in, like a ghost finally getting to go back to its body, a welcome that nobody really noticed. Tonight was Linda's birthday, a big one, 45. They'd ordered a fancy cake, hired a string quartet, and even got a photographer. Esther had helped with the flowers that morning, bending over with her achy knees, trying to hide her tears as she buried her face in the lilies so Linda wouldn't see. But she wasn't invited. "I love you, Mom," Linda had said, "but David's work people are coming. We can't explain everything right now, okay?" Esther nodded again. She always nodded. It was almost 9 p.m. Her fingers had stopped moving. The scarf had fallen off her lap and landed on the garage floor. It looked like a forgotten flag. She just sat there. She had a picture hanging up in her bedroom, the bedroom she couldn't even decorate anymore, of Linda's 5th birthday. In the photo, little Linda was holding a stuffed bunny, her cheeks covered in chocolate, her eyes shining with happiness. And behind her, you could barely see her in the corner of the photo, was Esther, smiling. Not posing for the camera, not trying to look perfect, just full of love. It was the only picture where she thought she actually looked happy. They never put that one out in the living room. Suddenly, a knock. Soft. Gently. The signal. The party was over. Esther slowly pushed herself up, her knees popping like old wood. She picked up her scarf, dusted it off, and tucked it under her arm. As she started to walk toward the door, she saw her reflection in the garage window. The silver hair pulled back, the quiet eyes, the way her lips were pressed tight. So much life she had lived, and now she was just waiting for permission to come back inside. She whispered something, not to anyone, just to herself. One day, they'll miss this quiet old shadow. And then she opened the door. What if one day she just stopped opening the door? The hallway light was still on when Esther stepped back inside. The warmth hit her face first, then her fingers. It stung a little, like when you start to thaw after being out in the cold. She stood there for a second, letting her eyes get used to the light after being out in the dark garage. Linda was in the kitchen, still wearing her party dress, kind of poking at some frosting left on a plate. "Oh, you're back," she said, not even looking up. Esther gave a small smile. "You can get some sleep, honey. I'll clean up." Linda hesitated, then quickly said, "Thanks, Mom," before she headed down the hallway and disappeared into the master bedroom, her old room, the one she used to share with Esther's husband, Harold. Esther was alone again. She started gathering up the wine glasses and crumpled napkins. She had a system for it, all neat and careful. There was something peaceful about cleaning. You knew what to expect. It was a quiet that didn't ask any questions. Her feet just moved without her thinking. But tonight, something was tugging at her, a thought that she hadn't had in years, like an old friend you really cared about, but you just got too tired to call. When did I start being sorry for just being here? She took the dishes over to the sink, rinsing each one under the warm water. She could see her reflection in the window above the sink, kind of ghostly, with these hollow eyes, quietly watching herself. The house smelled like fancy lemon candles and perfume. It used to smell like apples baking and wool sweaters. She missed that. Not just the smells, but who she was in that house. Back then, Esther and Harold lived in a simple, happy home. Everyone was always welcome, so nobody bothered knocking. He was a mechanic, a good man, strong with hands that could fix anything, except his own heart, as it turned out. Harold died on a Thursday morning, peacefully, with the newspaper still in his lap. Esther never read the news from that day, so kept the paper in a drawer, folded just the way he left it. Linda was 30 at the time, 2 kids, a stressful job, and a marriage that was wearing her down. They came to stay, just until things settled down, and they never left. Esther didn't mind, not at first. The grandkids brought laughter, the kind that bounces up the stairs and fills every corner. She cooked for them, sewed for them, stayed up with them when they were sick. She gave them her bedroom, her closet, her car. "Just while we get back on our feet," Linda said, her eyes pleading. Esther didn't ask for anything back. She just thought, this is what moms do. Even when David started rolling his eyes when she told stories. Even when Linda started asking her to stay out of sight when guests came over. Even when her chair disappeared from the dining table to make space. Even when birthdays started passing by with just a text. She told herself it was normal, that families were just different now, that she was being silly, that love didn't have to look the way it used to. But tonight, something broke. Maybe it was being stuck out in the garage. Maybe it was hearing one of the guests laugh, a laugh that reminded her of someone she missed deeply. Or maybe it was the way Linda didn't hug her goodbye, only said, "You can come out now," like she was letting a dog out of its kennel. Esther walked slowly back to her room. Not their guest room, not her little corner, but the room she was allowed to sleep in. She sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding her scarf. "The things we do for love," she whispered. Harold used to say that, and he always added, "But love should never feel like you're disappearing." Her hand was shaking a little as she opened her drawer. She pulled out an old photo album, covered in dust but carefully taken care of. The pages opened like the memories were breathing again. She stopped at a picture of Linda when she was 17, smiling in her graduation gown, and Esther was standing behind her, in a dress she made herself, her eyes shining with happiness. She remembered that day. Linda said something that stuck with her. "I hope I grow up to be just like you, Mom." Esther touched the photo softly, her finger resting on the younger version of herself. What happened to that girl? She turned the page and saw a picture of Harold, with his arms around both of them, laughing in the sun. She smiled, even though her eyes were getting blurry. "I miss you," she whispered, "and I don't think I've been this strong since you left." The scarf fell to the floor again, but this time she didn't pick it up. Instead, she opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out an envelope, old, yellowed, and still sealed. It was the one she had written the week Harold died, a letter she never showed anyone. Esther held it in her lap, running her thumb over the corner. Then she turned on the lamp and started writing a new letter, this time to Linda. And what happens when a quiet mother finally speaks up? The sun had just barely peeked over the horizon when Esther finished folding the letter. The house was quiet. It had this soft, expectant stillness right before the day gets going. Even the birds seemed to wait to listen. The only sound was the soft swish of paper as she slipped the note into an envelope and sealed it with a firm press of her hand. No shaking now. Her hands were steady. Her back was straight. There was something important about that quiet time, like an invisible audience, watching, nodding, waiting for her to finally take the leap. She looked down at the envelope. The address was simple. For Linda, when it's time. She wasn't sure what time meant yet, but she would, soon. The letter wasn't written in anger. It didn't blame anyone. It just told the truth, plain and simple. She wrote about the cold bench outside, the smell of gasoline in the garage, that guilty feeling of being hidden like clutter when guests were over. She wrote about the ache in her bones, not from just getting old, but from becoming invisible. She wrote about Harold, about how sad he would have been to see this, about how she had loved Linda with a passion that burned so intensely it had burned through her pride. And she finished with something she had never said out loud, not even in her loneliest moments. "I'm still your mother, but I won't be your shadow anymore." She hid the letter behind the family photo in the hallway, the one everyone walked past, but no one really looked at anymore. The back of the frame was a little loose. It fit perfectly. One day, she thought, it will find her when it needs to. At breakfast, no one noticed anything was different. David was already dressed for work, looking at work emails as he ate his toast. Linda sat at the table in her robe, drinking coffee, lost in her own thoughts. The kids, who were now teenagers, barely grunted as they poured cereal and went back upstairs. Esther made eggs for everyone, just like always. But this time, she didn't sit down. She stood at the counter and watched. When David left, he mumbled, "Thanks," without even looking up. Linda followed, already running late for a meeting. Esther was alone again. But this time, it felt different. She decided to take a walk, not because they told her to, but because she wanted to. The air was fresh, with that early summer feeling. She passed the old bench near the park where Harold used to sit and read the paper. She sat there for a bit, letting the sun warm her. She could hear children playing far away and a dog barking. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was waiting around to be called. An older woman came up to the bench. She had gray hair in a braid, wore a soft pink sweater, and pushed a walker that squeaked as she moved. Esther had seen her before in the area. "Do you mind if I sit?" the woman asked, nodding at the bench. "Please, go ahead." They sat there quietly for a minute. Then the woman smiled. "You live in that house on the corner, right? The one with the rose bushes in front?" Esther nodded. "That's me. I'm Esther." "I'm Ruth," she said. "You always look so graceful, even when you're out gardening. I've liked that about you for a long time." Esther was surprised. Nobody had said anything like that to her in, she couldn't remember how long. "Thank you," she said softly. I don't always feel graceful." "Oh, honey," Ruth laughed. "Grace isn't about how you feel. It's about how you carry everything that tried to break you without falling apart." They talked for hours. About gardens, about husbands who were gone, about kids who forgot, about memories that just wouldn't fade away. When Ruth got up to leave, she leaned in and touched Esther's hand. "Some people treat their mothers like wallpaper. They want them around, but they only want them to blend in. But you," she smiled as if she knew a secret, "you don't seem like the blending type." Esther gave a soft laugh. It felt good, alive. That evening, she made up her mind. She pulled a suitcase down from the top shelf of the closet, the same one she hadn't touched since Harold's funeral, and started folding clothes in neat piles. She wasn't rushing, she wasn't running away. She was getting ready. At dinner, Linda looked up. "Are you going somewhere?" Esther smiled. She felt calm, peaceful. "I might be." Linda frowned. "Where?" Esther reached for her water glass, took a drink. Then, gently, "Someplace where I'm not asked to disappear." The table went quiet. Even the forks stopped moving. But Esther didn't back down. She didn't stutter or change her words. She just went back to eating her meal. For the first time, she felt the weight of her own voice, and it made her feel strong. She has a suitcase packed, a letter hidden, and a decision to make. What happens when a mother finally stops waiting for permission to live her life? That night, Linda couldn't sleep. Esther could hear her walking, bedroom to hallway, back and forth, like an echo going in circles. Cabinets opened, then closed. The kettle clicked on, then off. By morning, the air was thick, not just with tension, but with the idea that things were about to change. It felt like the house itself had shifted its weight, like the walls were leaning in, trying to listen. Esther was sitting on the porch with her suitcase beside her. Not to be mean, she didn't want a scene. She just wanted to feel the sun on her skin while she waited for her coffee to finish. She wasn't hiding out in the garage anymore. She wasn't hidden at all. She was deciding to be seen. Linda opened the screen door. Her voice was a little sharp, but not angry, just unsure. The kind of tone you use when you're talking to someone you don't understand anymore. "Are you really leaving?" Esther took a sip of her coffee. "I'm thinking about it." Linda sat down beside her without asking. That was strange. She hadn't done that in years. The silence stretched. Then Linda said it, the thing she'd been trying not to say all night. "I don't see why you're acting like this." Esther turned to her. Her voice was soft but strong. "Linda, I haven't really been acting like anything for 5 years." Linda looked away, crossing her arms. "We never meant to make you feel like you weren't welcome. It's just, sometimes it's awkward. With guests over, they just don't know how to talk to." "To what?" Esther asked. Linda blinked. "Say it," Esther said gently. "Finish what you were saying." Linda swallowed hard. "To someone your age." Esther nodded slowly. There it was. The truth out in the open. "I used to be your best friend," Esther said. "Do you remember that? You'd run into the kitchen just to tell me what happened in math class. You'd cry on my lap about boys. You called me every night when you were in college." Linda didn't say a word. "I didn't stop being a person," Esther added. "I just got less convenient." Linda's voice was shaky. "That's not fair." "No," Esther said. "It's not, but it's also true." The wind pushed the curtains inside the open door. A picture frame rattled softly on the wall. Esther leaned closer and spoke directly to Linda. "I don't want a big apology, or any kind of drama. I'm not asking you for tears, Linda. I just need to tell you this, because if I don't say it now, I'll carry it around with me until I die." Linda's eyes flashed. "Don't say that." "Why not?" Esther shrugged. "It's the truth. You treat me like I'm a piece of furniture. I'm here, I'm useful, but I have to match the room. Be quiet when guests come over. Get out of the way when I'm being inconvenient." Her voice never got louder. That's what made it so powerful. She wasn't putting on a show. She was just telling the truth, pure and simple. "I used to be your daughter. I shouldn't have been such a horrible person. And I don't feel like the right person in this family. Can I leave right now?" Linda's jaw tightened. She looked out at the street. She kept blinking, trying not to cry. "I don't understand how we got here," she whispered. Esther nodded. "I don't think I can stay with my husband and kids and feel so at home. I don't think I can go back to being who you feel as home. That's the beauty of it. I don't know yet, but wherever I go, I'll be safe, where that feeling felt. I have to do it." That evening, as they were packing, they've gotten their own things, a new place to be as them. One suitcase for a new home, one step for a new life. That's very brave, isn't it? All that's happened for you to make a choice for yourself? All that happens is just that. They stayed at home, without the hurt, without the feeling of being nothing. "I'm free. I don't have you, Mom, to be in our family anymore. You stay with our family, and you have you, so let be you, 'cause I'm just lost." That night, as David went to see how you held up, you just leave. No sound, no noise, to know wherever comes. For the rest of them, that night might change something inside their hearts. You see that you were with the most important persons in your life, and they aren't close, and they won't. You finally changed being a mom, as woman. Where is she going? The bus wasn't full, just a few people scattered throughout, lost in their own thoughts. The sound of the engine was steady and calming. It even felt a little familiar, like a heartbeat. They were a woman who wasn't known, a normal stranger who just went and changed her life, as she felt at home a bit. The window was now full of faces. No one really took notice on her as she was in the thoughts, as if she was a person who felt as everyone. One by one, people get off their seat. They went back to their homes, or whoever was waiting, as she was waiting for her moment. She looked back. She saw what she once was, a mother, a wife, and, well, there it felt. She should live. A few moments later, she found her at her stop. You never want to tell these people that they had a chapter as how her mother was. You are an unknown person for those people and those strangers. In the station were a few persons that knew her. The sun was shining right at the moment as they wave at her. It wasn't like that before. But it felt as home. To where will she stay? In the house were flowers out the windows, a home that they always took care. She feels safe. One night, she heard that woman talking to what happened back at the house. I felt as I was no one, something that they saw as no one at all, that even the husband saw the same as I felt to get that conclusion. But I can't and wouldn't hate them ever. The husband started to make you laugh by saying some of his weird stories of his life. you have a chapter that they can go back to, something that wants them to give advice to or ever be with. Now it's time to see who you are with, as life isn't nothing but new, but what happens after being seen? Her and new love seems that are just strangers, but had a life that felt and they had similar things. I don't want it to happen again, what that woman when thought she had, but never saw. It's why she changed to be someone. One night, her and him started writing a book about she felt, a place, a face. In their last page, it felt as they can rest and it won't to happen again. Until they meet again after life. And this is a story of life and new chapters. You got this one, who had to. Remember these. Where in your life have you stayed silent too long?